Hello artists, welcome to your Jacob Lawrence painting class. In front of you should have your sketched canvas, a cup of water, your large brush, your smaller brush, a napkin. Also be sure that you have black, white, orange, yellow, light blue, brown, and a dark blue for your paints. I do recommend a plate for mixing on. You don't have to pour your paints out, but I would definitely recommend a plate that you can use later on when we mix some of our colors. If you do not have all those materials, you're welcome to push pause on the video and come back to us whenever you're ready. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you're going to do is take your two brushes and swirl them around in your cup to get your brushes nice and clean. And then gently just tap them onto your paper towel. And today, while we are painting our Jacob Lawrence painting, we're also going to be talking about the artist and who he was and why he painted what he painted. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to paint our chalkboard, so this rectangular shape in the background. We are going to be using our big brush to mix the dark blue, the black, and the white. So I'm going to find a nice center or a nice area in my plate to mix those three in, and about a scoop of white, a little bit of black, and a little bit of that darker blue. So I kind of grab them all with my big brush. So a scoop of white, a little bit of black, a little bit of that dark blue. I'm going to mix it to make this kind of grayish blue color. Like so. Scoop of white, dot of black, dot of dark blue, and mix with your large brush. You can always wipe down the sides if you have big chunks of paint in your brush. And once you are done, you are going to outline your rectangle shape. So I'm going to pretty much go over my pencil line. I'm going to go to the right. I'm just kind of dragging my brush. If you accidentally get some on the outside, no problem. So the right and the left. I am going to jump to my small brush here in a second for those harder areas to reach. And I'm also going to outline around the three young ladies. So for now, I've just on the left, the top, and the right. With my big brush, and I put it off to the side. I'll use it here in just a moment again. But I'll jump to my small brush and that mix that I made. I'm going to go on this bottom line, and I'm going to outline around these young ladies with my small brush. And I'm using my small brush just because it's easier to get into those little areas. Just kind of creating a bubble so I know where to stop with my gray paint. And so that I have those nicer, cleaner lines. And our artist Jacob Lawrence was born in Atlantic City, New Jersey in 1917. So he's an American artist born in Atlantic City, New Jersey in the year 1917. And he passed away in the year 2000 in Washington State, so around the Seattle area in Washington State. In the year 2000 is when he passed away. Be sure not to paint this gray inside of any of the space for the three young ladies. You want to kind of keep it on the outside. And you can always make more of a mix if you need to. Just be sure to get one scoop of white, a dot of black, and a dot of that blue, and mix again. So you have your formula. So I'm staying in that rectangular area, using my small brush, going around them, and then I'll go back to my big brush to paint all that chalkboard space. Gray, that grayish blue color that we've made. So there we go, there is our outline around the three young ladies on top of the rectangular shape. Once I'm done, I'm gonna stay on that chalkboard area with this mix. And I think I'm gonna mix myself a little bit more. So a scoop of white, a dot of black, and a dot of that dark blue. Make a nice mix. And if it's not exactly the same as your other mix, you can always add a little bit of water on your brush, tap it on the paper towel about 5 or 6 times, and go over both of your mixes, and that'll just kind of help it work together a little bit better. And I'm just kind of painting in this up and down motion, doing my best to kind of stay in this area. Add a little bit of water to my brush, tap it on my paper towel, and then go over my two mixes so they can kind of work together a little bit better. And I do recommend 2 coats of this, which means you're going to paint it once, let it dry for a couple minutes, and then go over it with a second coat, just so you get more of a solid color. You don't want to see those sweepy brush strokes. So with my second coat, it'll just kind of give it better coverage. If you are still outlining, take your time. No rush. Just be sure you're getting your mix in the chalkboard area. If you need to switch to your small brush to get into those smaller areas, be sure to go over the outline so you don't see those outlines. You want it all to kind of work together nicely. Remember, you can add water to your brush, tap it on your paper towel, and then go over your outline to get it working a little bit better with the rest of your chalkboard color. I go back and smooth out any bumps I have with my paint, go over any outlines that I can still see. And again, I would definitely recommend 2 coats. Paint your chalkboard once, let it dry for a couple minutes, and then go back and give it a nice second coat. Go back and use my small brush. If you lost some of your clean lines, you can always take your small brush and drag your small brush to the edge and just kind of clean out those areas. Water, tap, tap, tap. Get those lines a little bit cleaner. Clean my brush, a little bit of water, and just kind of going on the outside. I'm dragging my brush to make it nice and clean. This looks great. And then take your time, no rush. If you're still working on this chalkboard area, as I move on, you're welcome to push pause on your video. once you are done, you can wash and dry both of your brushes. And again, if you're not done, you can push pause on the video. Twirl it around your cup, pat it on your paper towel, get your brushes nice and clean. All right, the next step we're gonna do for our Jacob Lawrence painting is we are gonna paint the wall brown. Do not worry about this part right here where the young girls are standing. So you wanna kind of ignore this area underneath the line, but the wall space is gonna be painted all brown. And you can use your big brush and your small brush as you're kind of going along and filling in the spaces. But I am going to start with my big brush and my brown paint. Big brush, brown paint. I do not want to get too close to my chalkboard right now because my chalkboard's still wet. So I'm gonna kind of avoid it for a bit. But as I get closer and I give it some time to dry, I can outline it in the brown. So I have a nice clean kind of border to it. But big brush, brown paint, I will start above this line right here with my brown paint. So I know I don't want to paint on or below that line. Go between each girl. I'm gonna make a line like so. Then I can go to the right of the leg and to the left of the leg. But again, I don't want to get close to the chalkboard shape because I know it's still kind of drying. So brown paint, wall space is going to be all brown. And do your best not to paint on the girls or on the floor. So whenever our artist was younger, he did live in the South, so the southern parts of America. And when he got a little bit older, his family did move up north again. So he moved from the South to up north. And when his parents got a divorce, his mom actually put him in the foster system for a little while. And then around the age of 13, he came back home and lived with his mother. So whenever he was younger, he did live in the South for a little bit. And they moved back north. His parents got a divorce and he went into the foster system for a little while. But then at the age of 13, he moved back in with his mom. And his mom saw a lot of potential with Jacob and the arts. So she did put him in some art classes, especially like after school art classes. And during this time, he lived in New York, in the Harlem area. And there was all types of amazing inspirations in the African American community. A lot of beautiful colors that he used from what he saw in his community. A lot of times in his paintings too, you see these beautiful geometric shapes, a lot of triangles and rectangles that were also an influence on his artwork. So these beautiful bright colors, these beautiful geometric shapes from his community was used in his artwork. And with this brown that we're using for the wall, I would recommend 2, maybe even 3 coats of this brown, because that second and third coat, they're gonna get rid of any of these sweepy movements that you see. You're gonna get a little bit more of a solid brown. So 2, maybe even 3 coats. Give it some time to dry between each coat. I'm going to use my small brush with my brown paint to maybe get into those little areas that are a little bit harder to reach. Small brush, pat, pat, pat. I'm just going to take my brush and dry it so I have nicer, cleaner sides by using the edge of my brush. Because when you do all those brush strokes, sometimes you can lose those nice clean lines. I'm going to go back and clean up. Put that to the side. I'll use that again. I am also going to paint the left side, the right side, and the top part where the brown does curve over. So where the ground is, I'll kind of make a line, and then I'll paint everything up from it with this brown. Same on the right side where the ground kind of ends. I'll make a line to the right and then paint everything above it brown. The very top of my canvas as well, I'll paint brown where it curves over. So all that wall space. Again, I would definitely recommend 2, maybe even 3 coats of this brown. You do want to give it some time to dry, so when it's not so shiny anymore, maybe after a couple minutes, maybe a little bit longer if your brown is still shiny. And be sure you've painted the left side, the right side, and the top side of the wall. All brown. There we go. Once you're done with the wall, again, 2 or 3 coats. I'm going to move along just for video's sake. You are going to paint the floor with a little bit of brown and a little bit of black on your brush at the same time. So I'm going to take a scoop of brown. I don't even clean off my big brush. A dot of black. I'm going to mix myself a nice darker brown. And then I can go in there and paint the space that these young ladies are standing on, this dark brown. And now I'm painting more side to side. And I will paint the very bottom and the left side and the right side of my canvas where everything just kind of turns. And 2, even 3 coats on this too. So once you're done, give it some time to dry and then go back and do another coat or 2. Beautiful. Go back and touch up this area. There we go. Again, take your time. You've kind of built your background and you'll start working forward on your painting. So we'll let those dry. I'm gonna wash and dry my brush. Really wash those brushes. Swirl them around. You can even hug your brushes with your paper towel by wrapping them around, getting all that paint off of it. The next thing we want to do is we are going to start painting the young ladies' dresses. We're pretty much going to go from light to dark with our dress colors. Let me show you how. We're going to start with our small brush and our white paint. And the bottom of this young lady's dress right here, this kind of long rectangular shape, is going to be white. Here's the thing, be very careful. If your brown still seems wet from your wall, be careful not to touch it, because if you have a wet color touching another wet color, they are going to blend and move together. So white paint, the bottom rectangular area. So while we do have this white on our small brush in this small rectangular area, we can go in there and make the numbers that the young ladies are writing on the wall. So small brush, white paint, if you want to watch just for a moment. This young lady is writing the number 2, so I'm going to come up a little bit and down. So some of it is being blocked by her hand, but there's the number 2. And I'm just kind of writing it a little bit to the right. So there's the number 3. And then the young lady on the very right, she's writing the number 4. And again, just kind of writing it a little bit to the right. And your chalkboard should be nice and dry by now. So the bottom of the dress is white. And then the number 2, the number 3, and then number 4. All right, and then you can wash and dry your small brush. Once you're done with your numbers in the bottom of that dress, you are going to keep to your small brush that you've just washed and dried. And this young lady in the middle, she's going to be wearing a yellow dress. So that mustardy yellow that you have, I'm going to dip it into your mustard yellow paint. And I'm going to outline the shape of her dress first, avoiding her hair and her arms and her legs. Be aware of any wet paints. If you have any shiny wet paints, do your best to avoid them. But this is a small brush and my mustardy yellow color. Again, look at these, this beautiful yellows, mustardy yellow, beautiful color influences. Perfect. And you can use your bigger brush to fill in, but be sure you've outlined that shape. And then you go in there with your big brush. Again, 2, maybe even 3 coats of this yellow. Go over your outline a little bit too, so you can kind of break it up. Sorry, my canvas is a little bit shaky. Give this yellow some time to dry before you go in there and give it a second or third coat. And if you're still working on your yellow or even your white, you're welcome to push pause. And once you're done with your second coat of yellow, even third coat if you need 3 coats, then you can wash and dry your brush or your brushes. All right. The next dress you're gonna paint is the young lady to the right, and you've already painted the bottom part white right here, but the top part of her dress you're gonna use your small brush to outline and your big brush to fill in with this really pretty light blue color. So small brush, and I'll start underneath her hair. Kind of keep my line work going until I reach the end so it's nice and smooth. No bumps. You want to always go over the bumps and smooth out your paint. And definitely 2, maybe even 3 coats of this light blue as well. Just kind of painting that same up and down motion. While our artist Jacob Lawrence was taking art classes, many of his teachers saw a lot of amazing techniques and really saw the potential in Jacob Lawrence's artwork. Again, he was taking things that he saw in his Harlem community in New York and put it into his artwork, the beautiful colors, the beautiful shapes. At around 16, he did drop out of school, but then entered art school again whenever he got a little bit older. So he did drop out at 16, but afterwards he did enter art school. And then during World War II, he did get drafted into the U.S. Coast Guard, where he continued to paint and draw. All right, so let's grab our really pretty burnt orange, small brush to outline for the young lady on the left, big brush to fill in 2 or 3 coats of this really pretty dark orange. I'm gonna do the same thing as before. I'm gonna outline. Be sure not to paint her hair or her arms or her legs. It's really pretty geometric shape. And I can use my big brush. Be sure it's nice and clean to go in there and paint her dress. Again, recommended 2 or 3 coats for that as well. And then I'm going to wash both of my brushes. And again, if you're working on the dresses, just be sure you have your light blue and white, your mustardy yellow color, and then your really pretty paprika orange, dark orange color. Then we'll let it dry when it's not so shiny anymore. Wash and dry our brushes as well. This painting was created from 1940 to 1941 by Jacob Lawrence. It's called In the North, the Negro Had Better Educational Facilities. So during Jacob Lawrence's lifetime, he saw a lot of African Americans move from the south to the north because there was better education available for his community and also better jobs. So there was a huge migration of African Americans after World War I from the south to the north. So this painting is a painting of three young ladies in the classroom doing some math. And he had a large series of these paintings where you saw African Americans at different job sites like a barber shop, restaurants, and schools. So again, a huge influence of his community put into his artwork. And you'll see all these beautiful geometric shapes, these beautiful bright colors that he brought from his Harlem community as well. A lot of times these shapes are referred to as the Cubism period, or you see a lot of like squares and rectangles and triangles. All right, so once you are done with these lovely dresses for these lovely young ladies, you are going to start painting their hair and their skin tone black. I am going to start with my small brush and then fill in with my big brush in the bigger areas. But use whichever one you want at any point where you feel comfortable in. And so I'm going to start with my small brush and my black paint. I'm going to start over here on the young lady's legs on the right. I'm going to outline to the left. Right. Underneath her dress. Like so. And then you can use your bigger brush for to paint that space in there, or your smaller brush. I'm just going to keep with my smaller brush. But use whichever one you feel more comfortable with. And then I'll continue on to paint her hair and her arms. Just be very aware of any wet shiny paints. Remember, the harder you push, the thicker these lines become. So be sure you're just staying inside of those shapes. Be sure you're going over them, making them nice and smooth. You can always take your brush and just kind of drag them on the outside and kind of get a cleaner line. Be very careful of these little small spaces too. In 1970, Jacob Lawrence did move to Seattle, Washington. So he moved to the Northwest and started teaching at becoming an art professor at the University of Washington in Seattle. So in 1970, him and his wife, who was also an artist, moved to Seattle, and he worked as an art professor at the University of Washington. I'll do the same thing for this young lady on the left. I'm going to outline her legs, then go into the hair and then the arms. And you can use your small brush to fill in. If you want to use your larger brush, or small brush to outline, and then you can use your larger or small brush to fill in. In a moment, we will outline our chalkboard in black too. So where the gray of the chalkboard meets the brown, we'll use our small brush to outline that rectangular shape as well. There we go. There's two. And then the third young lady on the left. And she'll also get some lines on her dress as well with the black paint. But I'm going to let her orange dress dry for a little bit longer. I'm gonna wash my brush just a little bit. I got a little bit of black paint on her orange dress. I'm gonna go back and just gonna touch this just a little bit. I'll go back and mess with it when it's a little bit more dry. All right. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I am going to add some black lines on this young lady's dress, and I just had some orange on there, so I'm gonna go back and touch mine up a little bit. But small brush, black paint. I'm gonna come on the right side of her skirt kind of area, or right side of her dress. I'm gonna go on the left side of her dress, like so. I'm gonna make a line on this bottom part of the dress. And then I'm gonna make some lines. So I'm gonna make one line for this little pleat, two, maybe a little bit taller, three, a little bit more to the, on the right side coming down, and my fourth little pleat. And I'm just on the tippy toes. And sorry about this area right here. I'm gonna go back and touch it up, but I got some of her hair on the dress section. But right here, I do want you to put lines for her, for the bottom part of her dress. And on the legs, if you see any lines that need to be touched up from left to right, you can go in there and also make these lines. Next, I'm going to go back for more black on my small brush. I'm going to kind of outline where the gray of the chalkboard meets the brown of the wall. So you can kind of clean up that line work as well. I'm going to go from here to here. Drag my brush. one side to the next. And then from top to bottom. Perfect, like so. I'm gonna wash and dry my small brush really well. There is one more thing. Right between her legs right here, there is a little bit of a thin white line. Be sure this black paint is nice and dry. For mine, I'd probably give it a little bit more time to dry, but I'm gonna show you what it's supposed to look like whenever you're ready for the last step. And again, take your time, go back and touch things up if you need to. Just be aware if you have a wet paint and another wet paint touches it, they are gonna mix. So you might wanna give some paint some drying time. And it's not a bad idea, especially with this painting, to go back and give things another coat if you can still see some of the white canvases poking through. But for the last step, I am going to go in here and make a really thin white line so you can see the separation between her left leg and her right leg. So small brush, tap it on my paper towel. I'm going to kind of bring it to a point, be sure it's nice and pointy. I'm going to put a little bit of white on my small brush and just barely push down on it. I'm just going to go a little bit to the left and then come back. There's that bend in the knee to the floorboard. So maybe make it a little bit darker on the bottom part. Start from the bottom area. Just on the tippy toes right there. And if you feel like the white line got too thick, let it dry. I'm just going to come in with the black paint a little bit more to thin out that line work. And again, I'm going to go back and touch this area. I accidentally got some of her hair on her dress. But if you wanted to go back and touch anything up, be aware of wet paints. One last thing about our amazing artist, Jacob Lawrence. He did pass away while he was living in Seattle, Washington, as an art professor at the University of Washington. An amazing artist, really brought his community into his artwork. Definitely taught us a lot about African Americans and migrations from the South to the North and the opportunities that were giving to them in the North versus what the South was able to give them in their jobs, in their education. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful Jacob Lawrence painting. I hope you learned some as well, and I hope you had just a fun time painting in general and in this style. Thank you so much, artists, and I hope you have a beautiful day.